these are the sort of symptoms where I'm going to go into both the processes with cortisol in our bodies. And what naturally happens is, in cortisol, there's the fight or flight response. You may have, you know, if you're driving along in your car and all of a sudden someone brakes in front of you and you don't notice it, and all of a sudden you put your head up and like, shit, and that feeling like your adrenaline's pumping and your heart rate's going a million miles an hour, that's your cortisol getting pumped into your system in that fight or flight response. The same thing happens if you're under threat, someone like put a gun in your head or something like that, that same response happens. Your cortisol is just pumping into your system. Or another way you can look at it is, if you go for a run, for instance, or you're playing sports, and you know when you feel like you're just fatigued, like you just can't go any further, and then all of a sudden you just go through this like bit of a shift, and then you just feel like you can keep running forever. What that is your adrenal glands are actually stepping up another notch, and they're releasing more cortisol into your system, which reduces inflammation, it reduces pain, and that's why you have that feeling like you can keep going. But there's another flip side to the cortisol in your body. If you're under a hell of a lot of emotional stress, it could be physical stress, doesn't matter what your environment is, any kind of stress that's ongoing and it keeps going on for a long time, in our society, in today's 21st century, what actually is happening is your adrenals are firing at such a constant rate, your cortisol levels are literally dropping too low. And if that's happening, symptoms of this can be gastric upset, because your bowel systems end up, you can have IBS symptoms. And some people, including myself, have had IBS symptoms in the past, gone to the doctors, gone for colonoscopies and stuff to find out what's going on, never found anything. Oh, there's nothing wrong, you just got to put more fibre in your diet. Never worked out what it was. Other things can happen. In the mornings when you're waking up, you can feel quite cloudy, like when you're trying to wake up, you just can't get going. These are symptoms of inflammation and the cortisol being too low in your system. Other things can be feelings of greyness. You're not necessarily depressed, but you're not necessarily feeling like joyful either. So what this does is it just gets all the nutrients that the adrenal glands need to function at a high level, so that even in a demanding role that may be just your job, it may be having 4 kids that some mothers do have, you know, these different situations. 5, exactly, perfect example. Those demanding situations where your body and mindset is constantly under stress, this just helps your adrenal glands and it helps your body regulate your cortisol levels at a constant rate. So the feelings of calm, clarity, all these different things that come with it make you feel great. The best thing that I loved about this is where I talked about my story in the 5 to 7 days, was that in the mines, when I had massive breakdowns on all the equipment and I had to try and figure out what the problem was, as soon as I started taking this, I noticed that my fault-finding capacity went through the roof. I could actually sort through in my head where to find where the fault was coming from so much quicker. Even just work, like, because I was a health and safety rep for 50 guys, plus doing all this, and I had different work things that I had to do as well. Like I was a level 2 risk assessment facilitator. So the superintendents would go, I need you to go and do this, and it's like, but I've got to go and do these breakdowns. I found that I could just get around doing all these different things easier, and I felt more calm and relaxed. Things you'll notice, it's not necessarily even stress. You might find when you bite at your husband or something, like really easily. For me, Dave, she knows it, like if I haven't had my IONIX, she's like, you haven't had your IONIX, have you? And I'm like, it's little things like that. You can, like, just your irritability sort of thing can fire up more. But when you're using this, you literally notice yourself just being more calm, relaxed, and more, what is the word for it? You just, more, what was that word?
Centered.
Centered, perfect word for it.
The best way to sum it up is